Okay, righty-tighty. So I'll just go through 3 or 4 questions, is that okay?
Yeah.
Brilliant, okay. So, do you want to introduce yourself, Andrew?
Hello, I am...
Just look at me, it's fine, don't look at the camera.
Hello, I am Andrew Ferguson from the Development, Concepts and Doctrine Centre of the British Ministry of Defence, effectively the department's semi-independent think tank.
Well, okay. What do you do?
Within that organisation, I'm in the Futures team, and our role is to write about trends out to 35 years hence to inform decision makers within the department.
Cool, and what kind of stuff are you working on at the moment?
Personally, I have been given the geographical area of Europe, including Russia, and I have the thematic study areas of environment, energy, food and farming, and anything that's involved with that.
That's really interesting. I didn't realise that actually, thematically, that's what you're doing at all.
Yes, so in theory we should have 7 members of the team, and each team will have an area of the world or a theme, technology or governance. I have to have the environment.
Who does governance?
But at the moment we have an Africa specialist doing governance because we're writing about Africa. It would be interesting to see who gets that once he leaves.
Okay, that's really cool. So I understand that you went to the School of International Futures last year.
Yes, so I arrived whilst everyone else was on summer leave, and it was a little bit of baptism by fire because there weren't many to mentor me. And I was sent off to the School of International Futures as my introduction to how to contemplate the future and future to gaze. And that was a bit of a baptism by fire, as well as I met my first futurists, which was a very enjoyable experience. And I learnt a lot, not least because I knew nothing of various techniques that can be formally adopted to look into how you can examine foresight and the future.
Oh, that's really interesting. And what happened as a result that was different in terms of taking the insights back into the office?
So I can still turn to those who haven't been in our team very long or haven't been to the School of International Futures and talk to them about techniques that can be used. And when we engage with other people or organisations who have a role of looking at the future, at least I can talk with some authority about why we have stuck to trend analysis and not used other methods such as scenarios, for example.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
We're a government department, and we very much need to make sure that what we write is evidence-based. And for us, trends is perhaps one of the more certain ways of looking into the future. It doesn't mean, of course, that we will invariably cover everything off, because if there isn't a trend, then it's not necessarily something that we're going to pick up on.
That's brilliant. So disruptions or scenarios.
Yes.
Do you look at that shocks as well?
We do shocks. We tend not to use the scenario technique, although we have in the past. And we will look at disruptive technologies being the classic example.
That's really interesting. And any feedback on how to change things on the course? Coming up to the 5th anniversary, so want to make it even better.
For those who might be contemplating going on the course, I probably have 2 messages. 3 messages. One, you don't need to have a background in this. I went from a position of not knowing much about how to look at the future and learned an awful lot. So don't feel you need to know something before you go. Second point is, I was incredibly impressed by the quality of the attendees. Trilingual PhD holders were the norm. Don't be intimidated by that, but I can assure you that the company that you'll keep on the course will be very stimulating. And the final point is, given the quality of the course and the environment in which it was conducted, I thought it was excellent value for money.
Brilliant. And tell me more about the impact of using these tools in your job. What changes in the real world out there as a result of doing futures exercises?
don't want that one video because I haven't got an easy answer.
No, that's fine. But I mean, it's genuinely a difficult issue, so I think that's okay.
And I can talk to you off record on that one.
Yeah, okay. What skills and resources and what can you do differently as a result of doing futures work? Or doing the course?
Policymakers, in my context, policymakers, all need to be making decisions on the future to some degree. When you have to make policy about long-term projects, then you need to be thinking quite a long way in the distance. A classic example for the Ministry of Defence would be, of course, the purchase of aircraft carriers, because they are large investments and we will have them for a long time to come. So we need to do research into what the context is that they will be used in the future before we commit.
And if you could choose one thing, if you could wave a magic wand, and these are just like questions that are coming out, I'm not reading them off, by the way, Andrew. If you could wave a magic wand and get one thing fixed when you're in your work doing futures, what would you do? What would you really like to unblock, I guess?
Ideally, I would like to improve human nature so that it was more altruistic and less self-interested and self-serving.
Okay. So it's that kind of, it's the inbuilt heuristics around being short-termist and...
There's certainly... Policymakers are in, generally, an invidious position when asked to make policy about the future, because you're trying to defend a policy on something that hasn't happened yet. It's far easier for them to be making policy on things that have already happened. So invariably, they are more comfortable making decisions at a shorter time frame than based on events that are further off. I don't know that I would necessarily want to change that short-termism. It's the self-serving nature of decisions and the competition between people that causes increased self-serving interests that I would change if I could. How do you address climate change, which is a really serious problem for all of humanity in the future, if you constantly have to compete and you can't find within yourself, the ability to find cooperation? That's what I would change. More cooperation, because I am worried as I look into the future that many of those challenges in the longer term are going to have to involve greater cooperation.
And do conversations about the future, does strategic foresight help that happen, do you think?
Yes, without a doubt. It helps shape the narrative. Narrative eventually shapes media, it shapes public opinion, and it shapes decision makers and policy makers.
Brilliant. This was so good. You're a natural.